Hello everyone, I'm Generation 3DX, a dad studio artist. Hopefully by now you've watched my series on how to create beautiful art in dad studio. In this video I am going to do something new. I am going to do a scene analysis. So we have here a scene which I've just worked on, and actually hasn't even been released yet on DeviantArt. So this video may even go out before this. You even see this picture on my main channel on DeviantArt. So where to begin? Let's get stuck in. Where did the idea come from the scene? Well, I started out. I've got seven main characters, and the two that you're seeing here as Joni is the redhead on the left, and Natalie is the brunette on the right. Those two, I haven't really done very much with them in the last couple of months, and so I thought, well, and I've actually never put these two girls together before, so it seemed like a perfect pairing to bring the two together. So here they are, and I think they work beautifully together. So that's the selection for the two characters, okay. And I always think two is better than one. Two girls is always better than one girl. But then, you know, it's whatever you're in the mood for, isn't it? The two girls, they work well together, I think, but they had an immediate challenge. When you put a redhead with a brunette, I don't know, redheads and brunettes, do they really go together as black and red? I did actually have a series, Black and Red, which actually featured Sansa and Joni. But these two, yeah, it's an interesting pairing. Now, getting into the color system, Joni is a spring, which means that this is Carol Jackson's seasonal system. Joni's because of her red hair, she's a spring, which means that she needs warm colors. Okay, you think, oh, why did you put her in blue? That blue can't be warm. It is actually a warm blue. It's like a turquoisey blue. Okay, and that actually goes with her makeup, her eye makeup, which is matching her dress. Okay, so I'll talk a bit more about how I got those colors, but I'm just going to do an overview of the whole color system here. Contrast with Natalie, who is a winter. She's almost the exact opposite of what a spring would be, in that she is dark. She has dark eyes and dark hair, but she has cool skin. So we have to put her in a cool color. Okay, and so I went with an icy blue, but I could actually do an icy blue which was almost a hue of the same hue as Joni's, because I didn't want to do a cool blue with a warm blue. And yet icy colors, whether they're warm or cold, interestingly enough, seem to work in winter, and you can see this in the winter palette here, where you can have an icy aqua. So Joni's wearing aqua, which is in her palette, and is a warm blue, and yet also I managed to get Natalie also in an icy aqua, which is, interestingly enough, is somehow a cool winter blue. I guess maybe because it's icy. But anyway, I'm just going by what Carol Jackson had in her palette, and I was really struggling to figure out the colors for the two girls, and then it just struck me, we'll just put her in an icy aqua, and then it works, because so the two dresses, these are two ball gowns, they complement each other very well, but they also work on each girl because they're not violating the girl's color palette, basically. So that's the color system. The theme that I wanted to have these two girls in, I wanted to do something really kind of classy, something, you know, really elegant, because I'd done some casual stuff recently. There was a set that I did with Kayla and Sansa, just last set. It's quite naughty actually, but I can't really talk about it on YouTube. But yeah, they're in pajamas, and so it's all very casual. So I thought I'd do the exact opposite of that. Try to put some nice jewelry on them, put them in ball gowns, and actually have the set be an actual a ballroom, if you like, a fancy palace. Okay, so let's talk about so kind of on the subject of the overall theme of the picture of this elegant evening out, the two girls out for an evening ball, you know, in fancy dresses and so forth. Let's have a look at the Royal Palace. Okay, So that is, if we go to environments, so it's by Digital 3D Lab, and it's called Royal Palace. Okay, and if we actually go, see if we can go to perspective view so we can get a look around. No, don't look there. A typical bloke looking down there. So this is the Royal Palace, and this is going to feature more in an extended set, because this is just going to be one picture of an extended set that these two girls are going to be present in. So it's a really nice, actually really beautiful set that's got incredible detail in here. Okay, so we've got a piano there, we've got some tables, fireplace, some pictures on the walls, chandelier, and interestingly 2 mirrors. So I actually have the 2 in front of one of those mirrors, okay, which I'm sure is going to completely wreck my render times, because light reflecting around and bouncing around tends to just really, on the ray tracing, just really kind of hammers your rendering. But hey, what the hell. Anyway, so that's the set. So we've got a really nice, elegant set to go with the ball gowns, or cocktail dresses, whatever you want to call them, that the girls are wearing. Okay. So that's the overall set. That's the mood of the going for the overall mood of a classy night out. 2 girls having fun. Of course, you know, with it being a ball, you'd expect that there would be hundreds of other people here, but you know, you can't do that in Daz unless you somehow did some kind of background of people. But I don't know. I don't know how you could do that realistically. So anyway, the 2 girls are out on their own. They're out on their own in a ball. Okay, so let's talk about the actual framing. I've actually got 2 pictures here I'm going to show you, but I'm going to focus mainly on this one, because this one, there's quite a lot of emotion and there's kind of a lot of action in this picture, on this close-up here, where Natalie is actually looking at Joni. Okay, contrast that with the more kind of standard portrait of the first pose. Okay, this is almost like an outtake, if you like, where some kind of cheeky side photographer has taken a secret snap of Natalie having a sideward glance at her evening friend. Okay, and you think, okay, what is going on in the emotional aspect of Natalie? This picture is all about Natalie. Okay, Joni is she's just looking at the other camera, you know, and she's just smiling, and unbeknownst to her, her friend is looking at her, and there's something going on in Natalie's gaze. Okay, so I think, well, what's, you know, does Natalie fancy her? You know, does she got some feelings for her? Well, she definitely has some feelings. I mean, it's pretty obvious in the picture, isn't it? And yeah, they're not just 2 models that we've just thrown together in front of the camera. So there's a really interesting dynamic, and it you know, it's so much like this in Daz, where you're tooling around, you're just trying to, you know, you can spend one evening after another and kind of, you know, nothing is kind of working, and and then suddenly something just pops out like this, because I was busy, you know, getting this one set up. Okay, now in this one you can see the actual render is Natalie's looking at the camera as well, and I thought, well, what would happen if I just do a close-up? And initially I tried having the 2 looking at each other, and that didn't really work, because it's quite difficult to get 2 characters to look at each other and somehow you have to decide, you have to choose between one or the other. Okay, because if you have the camera directly in front of 2 people looking at each other, all you see is one eye, and you're looking at you know, you're seeing the corner of their eye, and it doesn't look very good. So you always usually want to do, and this is how Hollywood does it, when you have 2 people talking to each other in a dialogue, you'll have one and then you'll have the other. So you'll have an A and a B camera, if you like, that is going between the two people in the dialogue. Okay, so you know, this is like an A camera, if you want to call it that. So A camera would be on Natalie, and you see here, talking of the framing, of it. So we've gone for a 1x1 frame. It's just a 12:12. It's just a 1:1. Okay, so it's just a totally square frame. I could almost put this on Instagram, couldn't I? Because it's completely square. I'm not on Instagram, by the way. I think it's a waste of time. But then, hey, look, each to their own. And I'm not on TikTok either, because I'm Generation X, for heaven's sake. Come on. Right. Joni is, because this is about this particular frame is about Natalie. Joni is out of focus. Okay. Well, how much out of focus is she? Let's talk about the camera. Okay. Since framing and cameras go together, right? So if I go to the camera, CU is this close-up camera. Okay. We have a focal length of 150, so it's a moderate telephoto. Because if I'd had it at much lower than that, you start to get just perspective distortion, and I usually prefer a flatter perspective. Okay, and 150 would give you that. If it was set to 300, then there's just not enough room in the room to actually have the camera on there. I guess I could hide a wall to do it, but there's no real need, I don't think, to go beyond 150 unless you're going for some really very, very strong telephoto effect. Okay, so I set the focal distance using a little script that I've got, which focuses on Natalie's eyes, and we'll just double check that by going to the auxiliary view. So we've got our perspective view here on the auxiliary view. So we've got our camera selected on the scene. CU camera, and we just check our focus frame here. Now the script I have never gets it exactly right, but it actually usually does a pretty good job. But we always have to manually check it. So we're just checking for that cross. You always want to get it focused on the eye plane, and that's actually perfectly focused there on her eyes. Okay, so zooming out a little bit there, we can see Joni's definitely not within the focal frame. Okay, and that's intentional, because this picture is about Natalie. If I made that f-stop super wide or super deep, get both of them in, get both of the focus, get both of them in. That's not what you want. Well, I personally don't want that, because all we're seeing now is Joni staring out into a camera. That's not interesting. It's far more interesting if we say this is about Natalie. Okay, so that you're using the focus to purposefully draw the eye of the viewer to the subject that you want the viewer to look at. Yes, Joni's she's actually bigger. She's taking up more room than Natalie in the picture, and yet Natalie is the subject. Okay, so it's kind of messing with the viewer a little bit, I suppose. Anyway, so that's the framing and the camera work that have gone into this. Okay, so that's the camera. Let's talk a little bit about the posing that I had for these two. So the posing, most of the posing, 90% of the work I did on posing was on the first frame, which I'm showing you here, the final render of the first frame. And this was to kind of demonstrate, because Natalie is older than Joni. She's only 18. Natalie's probably about 25, 26. So Natalie's definitely Joni's senior. So you would expect that Natalie would be the one that's taken the lead, and she certainly is, because in this first frame she's got her hand on Joni's shoulder, and she's touching her arm, which is kind of a subtle or subconscious kind of signaling of body language to indicate that she's the one in charge. Okay, and Joni is very much the junior partner, and not, I wouldn't say dominant versus submissive. So it's a very gentle kind of gradient, kind of power gradient between the two. But nonetheless, the hands on Joni's body indicate that she's the one that's in control. Okay, and so if we now switch to this frame, we're kind of almost turning on its head, because Joni feels like she's in control. She's looking at the camera, but Natalie has been caught off guard, and she's focused on Joni. Okay, she's taken a glance at Joni, as Joni somehow captivated her interest, And so you have almost an inverse gradient of power between the two. Now you could argue that, oh, you're reading far too much into this. This is way too significant. Well, I don't know. Maybe ask yourself, when you first saw the picture, what were you thinking? Okay, and now compared to what the artist is telling you what they're actually intending to do, and maybe they're completely different. And if they're different, that's great. Well, that's what art's all about, isn't it? You know, it's all about the interpretation of the viewer is a very personal thing. In fact, John Lennon was famously said. He said, you know, if I want to find out what my songs are about, I read the reviews. Because, you know, the critics always had their opinion upon what John Lennon meant by this and that. Of course, John Lennon didn't mean anything of the sort. Anyway, in this, so she's still got her hands on Joni, but so she's glanced across at her. So to get Natalie's pose of her looking at Joni, I won't say I cheated, but I used a really cool tool called Look at Me 2 Pose Control by Riversoft Art. And for this one, I selected Joni's head, and then you select Natalie, and then you do look at that. Oops, wrong order, the other way around. So select Natalie, and then you select what you want Natalie to look at. You do look at that, and then you can toggle with, well, obviously you always want the eyes, but you can also toggle to have the head pointing at her or not as well. And you can also do chest and abdomen, but we don't want to touch those. So that's basically how I was able to get the eyes in the exact, pretty much in the exact position. If you try putting a camera there, I mean, if you don't have Look at Me, well, you really need to get Look at Me, because it's literally the most commonly used add-on that I have in DAZ. I use it so much. I cannot imagine life without it. I mean, it's possible that you could get your camera right by Joni's face, and you can use the eyes. You can select the eyes of Natalie, and in the params you can actually do a look at that way. Where's it gone? Point at. You can do point at, and you can then do point at the camera. It's not perfect though. It gives you some strange results sometimes, but you know, that's certainly one way that you can do it. Or you could just spend a bit of money and actually just get the look at Me 2 pose control. Okay, so back to the actual frame. So yeah, so we've got a totally square frame. We've got our pose set up. We're getting some kind of vibes from Natalie as she's looking at Joni. There's a sense of action, as in the camera just snapped this, and moments later or moments before, the picture would be different. Okay, so we've just kind of captured a brief moment in time, and that was also kind of an intention of this, is to really kind of capture that. It's a secret moment, basically. Okay, so let's now talk about the critical aspect of lighting and what lighting choices I used for this. So this was almost an accident, I'll be honest with you, because if we look at the main camera, because close-up camera is the main focus of this scene analysis, but the actual genesis of the lighting started out with the main camera. And this is you can see this on the final render of the actual first picture in this sequence. If we go to our find out where our key light is, it's a standard 3-point lighting setup. Okay, and the one I probably use more than anything else, which is Rembrandt. Okay, it's called Rembrandt because it was named after Rembrandt van Rijn of the 1600s. If you haven't heard of Rembrandt and you're in art, I don't know what to say. But yeah, he's literally the most famous artists in art history. He was a pioneer in studio lighting for his pictures. And obviously would use candles with a kind of a metal focus to actually create the lighting effects that you see in his outstanding portraits of people. So the Rembrandt system is. You have a key light, and which is to 45 degrees to the right or to the left of the camera, but above 45 degrees above. So that's your main strong source of light. Your second light, your fill light, which you use to fill the shadows in for that the key light is casting on the characters, is 45 degrees in the opposite direction. So left if your key light's right if your key light's left, and that's at eye level. So this one's at eye level, and it's much softer light. It's a lower light source level. So that's your second light, your fill light, and your backlight is usually opposite the camera. Sometimes on the hair, or sometimes on the shoulders. It's sometimes called a hair light, and that's to kind of pull the to bring the background. Its purpose is to kind of separate the characters from the background. Now in this particular case, I don't want to mess with the positions here, but this backlight was originally behind and above the characters' heads, up in this direction. Because the camera, I'm on a different camera, I did actually move the backlight so that it was pointing on Natalie's shoulder. So if we look at this now, the trick that I did here was I left the key light and the fill light alone. I didn't move them, even though I'd moved the camera. And that was a moment of serendipity, to be honest with you, because I didn't move the fill light or key light. I didn't mess with them. And I think I toned down the fill light a little bit. But here, if you look at what the key light has actually become what can be called a rim light, where it's actually now, if you go back to where the key light is, it's actually going right across. It's 90 degrees across Natalie's face. Okay, now it's working perfectly for both of them for two different reasons. So if we look at Joni's face, which is obviously out of focus because, you know, as discussed in the camera section, you've got this beautiful effect here where it's kind of a semi-rim light where it's lighting up the highlights of her features. But with Natalie, it's doing something even more. It's doing something really quite magical, in that if I turn the fill light off, you'll see, you know, it doesn't work. Well, maybe it does work, but it's going to be a very different effect. So it's a much stronger, harsher effect. And the fill light, you see, is pointing directly at her face. So the fill light is effectively where the camera is. I think it is, isn't it? Let me just double check that. We just got a perspective view, actually. We see it probably better that way. So find out where the lighting is. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so there's the fill light there. It's almost right behind the camera. Not quite, but you get the idea that that's literally directly pointing at Natalie's face, that fill light. Okay, and you can see the key light's over there. Okay, so the key light is going right across her face to give that incredible, almost rim light effect. And you can see, actually, this is the amazing thing about this, is her nose. I don't want to keep dragging over it, but just look at her nose and you can see that pink halo effect of the light going through the flesh of her nose, the subsurface scattering. And it's a kind of really quite a beautiful effect that you get there. And it tells us that Natalie's a human being. She's got flesh, basically. It makes her flesh come alive and look very realistic and fleshy. Okay, if you had any doubt, she's not an android. Okay, so that's proof. Well, you can say, oh, she's an android and she just was made out of pink silicone, so don't bullshit me. All right, okay, she's an android, if you're happy with that. Okay, so again, it was just, you have these moments in when you're doing your DAS art where you just have a moment of serendipity, and this is incredible. I thought, well, just double check that it really is incredible by actually trying to move the lights with it, and it just looked boring and it was uninteresting. And because I'd captured not only Natalie's action shot and the reverse power dynamics that are going on with the senior to the junior, and the lighting came out, I just thought, okay, this is it. This is the scene I'm going to make a video about, because it was just one of those moments where you didn't see it coming, and then when you saw it, you thought, this is magical. This is a magical moment in my art career. I'm going to capture it, and here it is. And here I am waffling to death and being overly significant about the whole thing. Okay, so that's your 3-point lighting, 3-point studio lighting, where it's kind of they're Rembrandt lights, but not really. It's kind of a Rembrandt kind of slashed rim lighting, and it creates this magical effect, which enhances the subject, who is Natalie in this particular case, and there you have it. Let's talk about a little bit about hair and the details and the colors and stuff like that. So to the hair selection, Natalie it's quite difficult to get the right hair for Natalie. She's got a particular face that, and this is talked about in my hair video, which I just released a couple of weeks ago. I found that Candy Braids hair by Zoro D worked really, really well with her, because Natalie, you find that your characters, they take on, you have a certain backstory and your certain kind of personality that you build up with them. With Natalie, she's a kind of older than a teenager. She's one of the older models that I have, and 27 is hardly very old, is it? But she's kind of more kind of a mature, more kind of a bit classy. She's quite elegant. So we couldn't really put her in a casual haircut or some kind of girlish haircut, although I actually have had her in twin braids and she still looks good in that. But I found that when I put Candy Braids on her, Candy Braids is a more formal kind of hairstyle, which was also going to suit the occasion, as well as it's suiting and working with her head shape and her face shape as well. Okay, so that was a shoo-in for me. Once I saw that with her, when I saw her in Candy Braids, it was an absolute, it was a slam dunk. Joni, she was actually much easier. Joni works well. In fact, Joni's got the Sue hair. That was her original hairstyle. Okay, so that she features that in that hairstyle more than any other by far, because it just works so well with her face. She has a more flexible face, not literally made of rubber, but she can have a lot more hairstyles. She can get away with a lot of different hairstyles. Joni, I think it's because she's probably got an oval face mostly. Well, I think it's slightly square as well. But anyway, Sue hair is just a very traditional, long hairstyle with a kind of somewhat bangs on the front, a fringe on the front, but an elegant and kind of classic long hair for girls. Okay, Joni's Sue hair is I had spent the last week or two going through all the different hairstyles that she does have to ensure that the colors were all matching her natural hair color. Okay, so she's obviously a redhead, and redheads, if you do have a redhead in your collection, they are tricky, because they're very particular color that you have to get right if you want to keep it consistent, because all the different hair products have all the different ways of producing color. Okay, in the case of Sue hair, for instance, we do have a kind of a hair bitmap there, which has got its own color. So that's going to be different on a different hairstyle. So you might have a super red bitmap that you then have to make adjustments. So you have to kind of tailor every single hairstyle has to be tailored exactly, and you just have to have one next to the other, and when you're working on it, to actually get the hue, the shade, and the brightness right. Okay. But this hair, I've got her hair now exactly like I want it, and I've saved all of these, and I've got all these saved in. I've got each of these material presets saved for each of the different hairstyles in my library, basically in my library and presets. All right, so Natalie's hair was much more straightforward. She's just a dark brown hair, not black, because she's not Latino. She's kind of an Italian American, I guess, is her background. So she has kind of very dark brown hair to match her dark brown eyes. So she's a lot easier to do in that respect. So the dresses, as I intimated earlier, the dresses have been color. They've been color matched to each of the palettes. Joni's spring color with the aqua, and Natalie's winter color with the icy aqua. They're both the same dress, which is the D-Force cocktail dress by Sunfire. Okay. Now the material presets that you have. Well, Joni's was quite easy because I could actually put her straight into a floral aqua. Okay, and that color's in her palette, so it worked very much straight away. So with Natalie, I used almost like a neutral base option, and then I applied my custom color, which I selected. So I selected all the different surfaces and then added this additional color over a whitish gray. So here's my aqua color here that I picked out. So this is actually a custom color that I used for her. So you wouldn't ever see that dress in that color. It's a unique one for her. Okay, and that gave me the exact match that I needed to match her winter palette, icy aqua color. The jewelry that they have, again, is a pretty straightforward. Spring and autumn require gold because they're warm colors. Summer for Joni, for Natalie, because she's winter, she needed a cool color, so silver. Or you can imagine, yeah, it is silver. It's not really white gold because it's kind of brightish. You get that bright, kind of almost slightly warm brightness that you get with silver. Not that she's cheap. She just knows what to wear. Okay, to match her, and the earrings to go with that too. So let's talk about the makeup. Natalie's makeup. If I switch, they both have custom makeup, which I have custom designed, and I have a whole video on how to do custom makeup. So if you definitely are struggling with your makeup, check out that video, which I'll link into the description and post it up there in the corner so you can see that. We go to Natalie and we go to the Surfaces tab. So we select Natalie here and we select her face. What we have is we have a base color. So we click on the base color and we select layered image editor. So we got a layered image editor here. So she's got rouge as a separate transparent layer, which I've custom built, and also some eyeliner, which I've also custom drawn that using Photoshop. Okay, so the full details on how to do all that are covered in my makeup video. So just so you know, this is a demonstration of that technique in action. So that covers the eyeliner and the rouge. Okay, in order to actually get the to get her very dark eyeshadow, you use the diffuse overlay, and it's actually, I've got a very high value here for diffuse overlay weight. If you don't see diffuse overlay on your settings, look for the makeup layer. Okay, sometimes it's makeup layer and sometimes it's diffuse overlay layer. Okay, it'll be one or the other. So we've got a very heavy weight here because I wanted to give her a bit kind of a darker evening, more of an evening makeup, kind of heavier, to really kind of bring out those beautiful brown eyes, and to match her to dark hair. So it's completely black overlay color with a heavy 86% weight on that bitmap there, and that's a custom bitmap that I have also designed, and that's a white bitmap against a black background. That's how you do your diffuse overlay weights. Okay, I don't think she's got any metallic flakes. She actually has got metallic flakes. Blimey, she's got it all. Although she probably doesn't really need it for black. The idea will be that in some of the later pictures in this sequence, where her eyes won't be closed, but they might be kind of more squinting or hooded or something like that, you're going to see some kind of silver reflections coming through the black. This is quite a sophisticated look that I've given her. Okay, so now Joni's makeup is, I won't say more interesting, it's different. Okay, and actually this is, if I show you the other picture, you can actually see it's a bit clearer. So Joni has got the matching, so select Joni actually. So we select Joni's face and surfaces. So we're going to be using the same technique, and and with the base layer, there's another layered image editor. Actually, interesting enough, she hasn't got the eyeliner on there. I don't know what's going on there. Ah, yes, I remember now. Yeah, so her base bitmap, her base face bitmap has actually got eyeliner on it already. So I actually was able to just use that one because I was being a bit lazy. Okay, but we got rouge on her there. The more important one is the diffuse overlay weight, which I use the same bitmap that I use for Natalie for the eyeshadow. And again, quite a strong 79%. And you can see, you know, it's a pretty thick layer. It's a very, very peacock blue, if you like that. So there's our peacock blue aqua to go with her dress. Okay, because it's an evening, so it being evening makeup, it's going to be heavier, more pronounced than a day makeup. Okay, and she's also got metallic flakes as well on her eyeshadow, so they will glitter, so you get a shimmer effect, a really beautiful shimmer effect with the same color here, a lighter aqua, same hue, and with a fairly low roughness, but not too low. And that's their eyeshadows and their makeup. The lips, I did some adjustments on the lips, but I didn't want to go too heavy because they're wearing lightish colors. You wouldn't want to have, well, you could argue, well, why did you put Natalie in all this dark makeup? You know, why not give her dark lipstick as well? I could have probably given her dark lipstick, but usually I have a personal preference for more subtle lipsticks on my ladies, and I like them to have more natural lips. But again, it's entirely up to you whether you want to go for a heavier effect on the lips. So I won't talk too much about lips, to be honest. Right, okay, and so with that subject of makeup, I think that's pretty much it. I think I've covered everything. So the posing, the camera framing, and the focus, the capturing of that moment, it's like a secret moment of Natalie looking at Joni. This whole reversed power dynamic where even though she's got hold of Joni, she's the one that is almost at effect and Joni's at cause, because she can't help but glance at Joni. So there's all this kind of dynamic going on there. And that's ultimately, I think, well, you could say that everything else is window dressing and also all very beautiful, but the real trick of the artist is to kind of somehow capture a moment, you know, and have the viewer really think what's going on emotionally. So we've got the colors, Joni's spring, aqua colors, warm colors, Natalie's winter, cool colors, icy aqua, the jewelry to match those colors, and the makeup. Okay, that's the analysis of Joni and Natalie in the ball gown scene. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it useful or interesting and you enjoyed it, then give me a thumbs up, and definitely subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. If you want to learn more about my art, follow me Generation 3DX at DeviantArt, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching.